Hi, my name is Amy Wishnick, and I am the principal of Wishnick and Associates, a nonprofit consulting firm that works with all sorts of nonprofits across the sector. My practice involves a lot of strategic planning, board governance, and board development, lots of assessments. I seem to like to take all sorts of information and put it together on behalf of my clients. And because of my past experience in executive search, and having been a volunteer and done many searches and marrying that with my work, I do a lot of executive transition engagements where I either do the search or where I work as an advisor to a board of directors going through a search. It's one of those things that a board has only one opportunity to do it right, and so I like to bring my expertise and marry it with that of the board to make sure that the nonprofit really has a successful search and can move on to its next level. I started out my work life at the National Endowment for the Humanities, where I managed research grants, which was wonderful. It was like going to grad school. And so I was on the other side of the desk doing, as a grant maker, which I loved. When I moved back to Chicago, I really wanted to be a grant maker again and stay that, but I found that it was it was kind of a tight world. It sort of still is, but back then, shall we say, it was. I had a brief stint as a development director in an organization, and then I went to work in a law firm where I did attorney recruiting and managed all of their associate hiring, which was really great. I then will say that I have two adult children, and I stayed home with them for a while. And then I went back to work, and I worked at an executive search firm for 7 years and loved doing that. And when I decided that I had another adventure in me and wanted to be my own boss, I decided to go back into the nonprofit world because I liked it, and partly because I'd been doing a lot of volunteering and really, frankly, decided that I could get paid for what I was doing. One of the most wonderful things about being an independent consultant is I actually am my own boss. And I get to run my business the way I want to run it. I get to interact with my clients the way I want to and according to my values. And nobody's breathing down my back telling me to hurry something up because someone else wants to close out a client or an engagement or whatever. And that freedom is just really important to me, and to be able to rely on and trust my instincts, which so far in my life have served me well. I can't believe that I frankly get to get up every morning and do this work with my clients. As I describe it often to my clients, I can't house the homeless. I cannot go make policy for education or youth or whatever, and my family will be the first to tell you that I can't sing or dance in terms of arts organizations. But what I can do is bring my expertise in organizations, in governance, in executive transition, and in all of those things. And I can bring my expertise and marry it to what my clients do and help them do better. One of the things that I learned when I was doing executive search was that I sometimes felt that people were paying more attention to the carpet on the floor and the chairs that their employees were sitting in than they were paying to how they were hiring and who they were bringing on and what the culture and values were in their organizations. And so that piece of it is really important to me. And so to find organizations where the values and the work really resonates with me is absolutely what I love about doing what I do. I have worked with so many different organizations in 18 years. I mean, it's really kind of remarkable, the kinds of organizations, and I'm truly honored by the trust that my clients put in me. One of the things that I've been doing over the years that I learned about actually through ACN was the Axelson Center. And so for years I taught strategic planning at the new CEO's boot camp. And one of the people I met there was Betty Bogg, who is the executive director of Connections for the Homeless. And it must have been 2016. she called me up, and I will say that I didn't anticipate getting clients out of doing that. I just did it because I really wanted to do it and I thought it would be fun, and it was. And Betty called me and she said, well, I just finished up boot camp and I was in the strategic planning class and you were speaking my language, so I'd like to talk with you about doing strategic planning with our organization. And so I did the first plan with them. And then during the pandemic, actually, before the pandemic, and then we did the work during the pandemic, they engaged me to do the second strategic plan with them. And that was the first time that I'd ever worked with a client on the subsequent plan of one we'd already done. And it was an extraordinarily exciting opportunity to see how far they'd come, to see the strides that they'd made, to see how incredibly resilient as an organization they are, and the work that they did during the pandemic, and the creativity and the boldness. And so we were able to build on that in the next strategic plan, which we finished up at the very beginning of 2021. And so that's just been really exciting to kind of see an organization grow, and to be part of charting that path has been really exciting. There's an organization called the Charge Syndrome Foundation, and they're a national organization, and they found me in 2008 on the ACN website. And they are, in fact, the first national client that I had, and sort of the rest is history, because now I've had many national clients. But they found me on ACN because they were coming to Chicago for a national board meeting at the site of where their summer conference was going to be. And they wanted somebody in Chicago to facilitate a board training for them. So we did all our work, frankly, virtually, before virtual was a thing in 2008. And I met them for the first time the night before the board training. We had a very good conversation. I liked them very much. And they had at that time, they were beginning to grow in a different kind of a way. And without going into too much detail, let's just say that I facilitated in that day some change that was unexpected, in that we talked about a particular issue, and I said, are you okay if I see an opportunity to open the door and do this? Are you okay with me doing that? And they said yes. And the door opened, and I walked through and brought them with me, and there was this really kind of significant change, and which is very exciting. And because I just liked them very much, I kept in touch over the years. And lo and behold, I guess last fall, I got a phone call from them, and I'm doing another project with them, which morphed from what we initially thought it was going to be. And they are in the process actually of hiring their first ever executive director. They're very special, I think, because they were my first national client, and because it was truly the ACN profiles at work. There was a program years ago about how to handle difficult clients. And it was just some real-time stories, and it was facilitated by two consultants, and who had been doing it for a while and really doing it seriously, as opposed to in between gigs, sort of, I'll be a consultant. And that also kind of helped me realize that, yes, this is not a stopgap. This is actually what I want to do. And so that particular program about what to do with difficult clients was very helpful, because we all have those moments where we just like, what should we do? How should I handle this? Have you ever experienced this before? And the other was truly memorable, was a Booth Business School professor named Waverly Deutsch came and gave two programs for ACN members. And she introduced us all to something called the Business Model Canvas. She talked a lot about it and how to use it and what it meant for businesses. And I think it's just a really great tool. And I will say that I try on a periodic basis actually to pull it out and go through it again, because businesses change. And the big milestone was the 3-year mark. And now at 18 years, I just really think, this is like a real thing here. And so it's great. I did a workshop one rainy Saturday morning at the Graham School at the University of Chicago with a friend who told me about it, and it was about how to be a consultant. I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And so the person who was leading it, was facilitating it, did a couple of things. The first thing he did was he said, the first person you need to convince is yourself. And I thought that was just really interesting and was perhaps the push that I needed to really do this, that I thought I could, I knew I could, but it was a leap. And so that really suggested that I was pretty well convinced. And frankly, after the workshop, I was totally convinced for a couple of reasons. One was I realized that I could do what he was doing. I had facilitated meetings before. I had done a lot of things, and it caused me to look back at all the different jobs and all the different work I'd done and roll into it all of my volunteer experiences and look at the patterns in what I'd done. And one of the patterns that I saw was that in every position I held, people would come into my office, sit down across the desk from me, and want to talk something through with me. And so I started thinking, okay. And then I read the book, The Trusted Advisor by David Maister, and it all kind of started coming together, and it took shape to be a business. And then, then the real decision was that the focus was going to be on nonprofits, because that was where I felt I could take my expertise and marry it to the mission. Other things about ACN that are resources, frankly, are the members. Over the years of being a member of ACN, I have met so many people who now are friends. I mean, the first person I met really was Joyce Pohl, and she was actually the president before I was. And I just sat down next to her one day at a program because she looked like a nice person. And so at this point, we have now been to each other's sons' weddings. That's just really cool. I was at a program meeting and I met Brenda Berman, and she was a new member of ACN, and we were in a small group, a breakout group together, and we were talking. For a long time, I had been thinking that there were things that I wanted to write, that I really wanted to write about some of my work and some of the things that were on my mind and some of the things that I saw in my client work and patterns that I was seeing, and I just kind of needed to unload some of it. I had not planned this at all, but literally on the spot, I asked her if she would work with me to help me develop a blog. And so Brenda and I worked together for 6 months before I launched the blog. And I was writing a post every month, but I absolutely never would have been able to do it without Brenda. And she was just the perfect coach. And so that was just a kind of an incredible opportunity that just enhanced my ability and enhanced my outreach to find clients and all of that, all because of, taking advantage of ACN networking opportunities. One of the things that I knew from experiences in other volunteer work too, is that you get out of something what you put into it. And so that is what kind of was a catalyst for me to join the board of ACN and be involved in that way. And then I had really the honor of being the president from 2009 to 2011. And that was just really, it was a wonderful opportunity. I loved doing it. It was an interesting time at ACN. One of the major things we did really was we worked on the calendar to make sure that that programs were planned far ahead of time, so that there was that members coming to the website, learning about things, that there was always something happening so that people would know that the organization was robust. It was a time also where we began to see people who were not local join. And because we weren't able to do as much or do what we wanted to do with that, because we didn't have the benefit of an executive director, and there was only really so much you could do as an organization run by volunteers. I think we did a good job because actually ACN is still here. So we certainly, minded the store well, and brought some new things. Another piece of what we did too was to shift a little bit of the focus to running a business, and to not only doing things for consultants around practice areas, but about trying to, in a sense, focus on the professional aspects of being a business owner. And so it's really exciting now to see what ACN can do that helps people in different practice areas, but also maintains that focus on all of us as being consultants and business owners, and the things that we need to be the best at what we do. I think you get in front of the nonprofit leaders by doing your best work, and by asking your client at the end of an engagement for a testimonial, or asking your client, is there anyone you can refer me to? Or please keep me in mind when your colleagues ask you for a referral. I mean, you have to ask for part of it. It doesn't magically happen. And we get known by the quality of the work we do. Each member, in a sense, has to figure out the way that they connect with ACN. But once you figure that out, I think to try to make the most of it. But the relationships, I have this wonderful group of consultants that I email when I have a question, that I commiserate with on something, that I refer work to because I know them and I trust them. And I think that actually, this may be the most important piece of advice is to new consultants, is figure out what you do. You don't need to do everything. Be clear about what you do, because I still remember an ACN networking meeting where a new consultant and a new ACN member came up and was introducing herself and was really making the rounds and just flitting from person to person, marketing herself. And I understand what was behind it. And we were talking and I said, well, tell me what you do. And well, she said, I do marketing, I do communications, I do fundraising, I do capital campaigns, I do strategic planning. And she went on and on and on, and there was even more than that. And we finished our conversation and we parted ways, and I walked away thinking, I have no idea what she does. It's sort of like going to a restaurant where there's just too much on the menu. It can't all be fresh. And I can't refer a client to someone who's all over the place. And when we as nonprofit consultants make referrals to other consultants, referring our clients to other consultants, because we don't do what they need, it's us on the line too. And so that's why it's people that we trust, that we want to refer to. Paris. Oh, Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious. My favorite, the one that I refer to everyone, Managing Transitions, Making the Most of Change. It is the best book for nonprofit consultants to read because it's all about what we do. It is dark chocolate, and I've always liked it, but let's just say we became best friends during the pandemic and I can't cut it loose. Well, I will tell you, actually, I had a real celebrity encounter that was really incredibly meaningful for me. So all through high school, I read a lot of James Baldwin, and every time I have moved, and my husband and I have moved quite a bit in the past 10 years, as we were downsizing, all of my James Baldwin books have continued to come with me. James Baldwin was signing books at Guild Books on Lincoln Avenue, because his new book, something called For the Price of the Ticket, had just come out. And I brought my book and I got in line. And so I'm standing in line, snaking through Guild Books between the shelves of books, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer. And now I'm trying to think about, what am I going to say when I get up to the table and James Baldwin is going to sign my book. And I get up to the table and I open up my book for him to sign, and I burst into tears. I wept. I was so moved by being in his presence. And he put his hand on my hand and said, like, it's okay, and signed my book. And this was 37 years ago almost. And it just was really an amazing experience. I don't know that I have any heroes exactly. I have people who have made a mark on me, or people who I think are amazing because of what they've overcome. My husband is an amazing person, and I have always said that he is who he is because of who he is, and in spite of what it was like for him growing up. And then I think the other person is my father, who just instilled in me a whole lot of things, and just maybe he was my hero because he believed in me and he encouraged me always. So I think maybe my dad.